Hi, I'm Shevya Awasthi and I'm a singer-songwriter.
Hi Shevya, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, I'm so glad to have you here. And I feel like we talked about this before, but like how we were following each other for like a year, and like I love meeting people finally in person. So like I'm so happy to meet you, and I'm so happy to have you with the Indian Standard.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So we'll just get right into it.
Yeah.
So obviously you are on social media, you do music. I know that you like write your own songs and like you do the Hindi versions, and you like write in Hindi too, which is crazy. So just like a little bit about how you got started with music and like your whole singer-songwriter journey. We would love to hear it.
So I started learning Hindustani classical music when I was 10, and I've been learning it ever since. I still sometimes take classes. I definitely didn't like it at first. My parents pushed me for a long time to do it. I've had stage fright my whole life growing up, so I didn't like singing in front of aunties, uncles. I didn't like doing any of that, but my parents pushed me through it, and in college I joined an a cappella team. And on the a cappella team, I was surrounded by so many talented Carnatic singers, Hindustani classical singers, just amazing singers all around. And so that really motivated me to pursue music again and actually put effort into it. And then later on, in 2019 or 2020, I forget, I went through a breakup. And then that breakup, actually, plus leaving the a cappella team, kind of, I became a little interested in singing and songwriting. So I decided to like start writing lyrics and experimenting, and then yeah, from there I basically began my like songwriting journey. So yeah.
How did you what was that like when you started to use like songwriting as like your creative outlet? Like explain to us how like the breakup affected you and like how it like made you go into all of that.
Yeah, so funny enough, the breakup was kind of just like the point from onwards where I started songwriting, but it wasn't actually what motivated the songwriting. When I was on the a cappella team, because I was surrounded by so many amazing artists, I fell into a really bad habit of comparing myself. So I became very, very insecure in college. Like basically throughout my entire time on the a cappella team, I developed a really poor relationship with music. I almost got to the point where I stopped singing altogether because I just got so in my head that, you know, I wasn't good enough, I didn't sound as good. What's the point in singing when there's so many other amazing artists? And so after I had left the team, and then on top of that, I had gone through a breakup, so I needed something to process my emotions. I was like, well, nobody around me really does songwriting for the most part. And so I was like, you can't compare yourself to other people when it comes to songwriting because it's your own creation, versus like when you sing a cover, other people sing the same cover. So you can make a comparison and decide who sang it better. But when it comes to your own personal creation, it's yours and yours alone. So I can only compare against my previous self. So that became kind of my healthier outlet to developing a better relationship with music again, because I didn't have anybody to compare to or anybody to make myself, you know, feel bad about myself. I was doing it for myself. So yeah.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, like I feel like when you put your heart and soul into something as well, like the need to compare kind of shrinks as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, I mean, to me, like when I think about social media, like I think it's like a place where it's very easy to compare yourself to others. So given that you had gone through that and then you came to social media, did that trigger you, or like how did you feel when you first started?
Definitely in social media, it's very easy to fall into the trap of comparing with other people, which is actually why, even though I did begin starting to sing covers again, I kind of transitioned for a while into making like Hindi lyrics and like putting original content, because again, you can't really compare when it comes to original content. But I also think with social media, I definitely had a learning curve where, again, I fell into the comparison about like, oh, this person's doing better than me, this person has better stats than me, like what are they doing that I'm not doing? I used to equate poor results on a video with, oh, I guess I'm just not a good singer, which is definitely not indicative of that. But I think the longer I stayed on social media, the more I just became okay with social media and just my relationship with it. And now I'm at like a much better place. I don't compare anymore. I don't feel like insecure around other singers anymore. I actually really love the Desi community online. I think it's a very supportive community.
So what is your daily routine when it comes to practicing music? I only ask this because I think like one of the harder things, especially if you came from like a Hindustani or a classical background, you get told every day to practice, right? And that's like one of the things that as kids get like resentful for, especially when it comes to music. So like how was that for you? I guess like how strict your parents were when it came to practicing music, and then how have you continued to practice it today?
As a kid, I used to take classes like once a week, and so my teacher would expect me to practice every day, and growing up I didn't like it that much, so I didn't actually do it every day. Maybe I did it like 3 times a week or so. My parents were never like so strict about it that I'd be like punished or anything for not practicing, but they were definitely like, you know, on my case, like you should practice, you should take some time out to practice. And so I think that's kind of how my routine was up until I came to college. And then in college, my music teacher's in San Diego, so it's not like I could see her very often. So anytime I'd come back on like break, I would practice with her. And then I actually ended up getting a new music teacher when I started my songwriting. And so I have now recently been practicing more often because I have another teacher again who I take like, you know, like video calls with once every 2 weeks or so. In general though, I wouldn't say I'm the best about practice. I probably should do it more often. I think I just get busy in like grad school, schoolwork and stuff like that. But when I do practice, it feels great. It's like nice to meet my teacher. It's nice to do my riyaz, get warmed up. And another form of practice I've started doing is also like songwriting practice. So I'll find, you know, random beats from YouTube or beats that my producers send me, and it doesn't have to turn into a real song, but just taking 30 minutes to come up with Hindi lyrics, make a melody out of it, it just keeps you in practice. So I like that too.
Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around it. So when it comes to songwriting, there's no way I could even understand how you do that. So here's just kind of like stepping back from music. So obviously like the pandemic changed a lot of us, right? And like you started on social media. So like what would you say are like the top biggest things that have changed about you in the last few years?
I would say I've become maybe a little more confident. I still think I have a lot more work to do in that area, but I would say being on social media, starting songwriting, and just making music that I now really like has, I think, made me more confident in music and in my abilities. I'm still very new to this and I'm still learning so much, but I feel a little bit better about it now. I don't feel as maybe lost. How else have I changed? I would say I've become a little bit happier. I think songwriting just gives me a lot of joy, and I think it makes me really like content. And I think whenever I'm like, you know, feeling down or feeling not it, songwriting really is a great outlet for me. And I think I've become a lot more ambitious. I literally in high school, all I wanted was a dog, a husband, 2 kids, and like a white picket fence. Like I had no aspirations. I didn't even want like a job for myself. I was like, I'll just work till I get married and stop. And that mindset has changed so much since then, and even like during the pandemic, I've become a lot more ambitious. I know exactly what I want, and I feel like a creative career now is something that I'm actively working towards, and I want to put my best effort into making that happen any way possible. So yeah.
I love that answer. Okay, so you had described a little bit about your mental health journey, but if you don't mind going in deeper about maybe where your anxiety came from, or like how the comparing even started, like was that something that you went through in your childhood? If you want to just like walk me through whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that in Desi culture, comparing is very common. We do it with like, you know, your like neighbors' kids, your other family members. So I definitely had that growing up. There were obviously other kids that my music teacher also taught, so sometimes there'd be comparing there. My cousin is also an amazing singer, so anytime she would sing and I would sing, you know, people would be like, oh, I liked her song better, or I like her song better. So there was always like natural, like, you know, aunties, uncles just making comparisons. And, you know, as a young kid, sometimes when you hear things like that, it kind of damages you a little bit. So I think that's definitely where the comparing started from. Aside from that, I've also just had a lot of anxiety. pretty much my whole life. I don't think as a kid I recognized that I had anxiety. I don't think I recognized it till I got to college, really. But definitely like forms of like social anxiety, anxiety with like singing, stage fright. I still have stage fright. I still can't really perform. I've never done like a full solo performance before. So yeah, just kind of learning how to like cope with that now.
Okay, so like how have you been able to cope with it?
A few ways. I think, well, for one, in the near future, I would love to start therapy just to give it a try and, you know, get some more ideas on how to cope with it. But aside from that, one thing that I kind of learned in college was if you kind of just think of like the absolute worst outcome that could happen and then you realize that it's not that bad, it kind of makes the anxiety also not as bad. If you really like I'm a massive overthinker, and like if something happens, I'll think of 40 different outcomes, which is just not efficient. So if I really need to think of an outcome, just think of the worst possible. And if it's not that bad, then there's really nothing to be that anxious about. And then another method that actually one of my best friends taught me was just recognizing when a thought is an intrusive thought and then just pushing it out. So I've been trying to practice that more lately. Anytime I have those kind of like useless intrusive thoughts, like instead of letting myself go down that rabbit hole and like spend, you know, hours thinking about it, just recognizing like this is intrusive, this is not useful to me, and just forcing myself to push it out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very rational way to go about your emotions. But have you felt closer to yourself as a result of that? Like, how do you feel like your relationship to yourself has changed?
I would say the one really interesting thing I think about my anxiety is that I'm such an overthinker and I'm so like in my own thoughts that I've become very, very in tune with myself and my own emotions. And I think I have done so much self-analysis that I kind of know at all times exactly what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking that way. And if I don't, I just naturally spend like the hour that it takes for me to figure out why I'm feeling that way. So not saying that anxiety is great to live with, but the one upside is that I'm very, very in tune with like myself and my emotions. Yeah.
Have you been able to like share that with your family, or do you feel like have you been a little bit different from the rest of your family?
No, I've had actually really great experiences sharing it with my family. My dad also, I think, has anxiety, and so talking to him and confiding to him about it, he'll always tell me like, well, I cope with it doing this, or I do meditation, or you should try this. So anytime we talk about it, I always feel a lot better after talking to my family, because I think they have all experienced to some variety, some form of anxiety, and they understand what I'm dealing with. And so every time I talk to them, they're always just trying to help me find different, like, you know, coping mechanisms, and they're also very open to therapy. My parents mention it all the time that if you need therapy, we have great insurance, go get that therapy.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Have
nice.
you always been like that?
Maybe not when I was a kid, but I think since going to college, just because I've been trying to introduce my parents to like new topics and things that I learn, I have been slowly like inching towards like therapy's a good thing. Therapy doesn't mean that you're crazy. It's like, you know, it's productive. And so I think now they're at the point where if I were to bring up therapy, they're like, they understand that like this is normal and this is good, and this doesn't mean that, you know, you're mentally insane or anything. You just, you know, need it. So.
Wow. So do you have like any advice to kids who might not have that, like might not have the ability to talk to their families about therapy, or like how did you start that conversation with them?
I think I started that conversation first by like just acknowledging my parents' background and where they came from, just to kind of validate them that, you know, their experience was their experience and it happened. But since you're in America and since we're in a new environment and the world is changing, it, you know, it might be beneficial for you to also change with the world. And it definitely wasn't like a one-time conversation. It was like a journey for like a little bit. So I don't know, it's tough. I feel like it's also kind of dependent on the parent and how willing the parent is to be, you know, open to like new concepts and new ideas. But I guess my advice would be to just try and like baby steps. And then, you know, if absolutely it doesn't work out, put yourself first and, you know, you do what you need to do.
That's good advice. Okay, so I feel like I understand a little bit more about your mental health journey. Do you have any siblings?
I do.
How's like your relationship with them?
It's good. I have a younger brother.
Oh, okay.
He's 20, and I have a great relationship with him. We never had any competition growing up, never had any comparing. He was just, he's I think, 3.5 years younger than me. It's just the irritating younger sibling.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's good.
That's good. That's good. No, I only ask because like if your parents are this understanding about mental health, like it's good to see that like your whole family could maybe be involved in the conversation too.
No, definitely. My parents have come a long, long way since when I was a kid. My brother actually took 2 years of a gap year after high school. So he's a freshman in college right now, and he took those 2 gap years because he wanted to potentially pursue golf, or he just wasn't sure what he wanted his future to be yet. And my parents gave him that space where they're like, if you don't want to go to college right now, you don't have to. We'll give you the space to figure it out. And their whole idea was that if we let him figure it out, eventually he will decide what he wants, and he'll either naturally decide he wants to go to college, or he'll pick a different career path. And that's exactly what happened. And now he's in college, but he's not going to college because, that's the natural path of life. He's going because he wants to be in college. So I have a lot of respect and admiration for my parents for being, so understanding, especially, given their upbringing. So yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap. There's so many things that you said today that I'm like, I can't comprehend. But that's amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it takes only like a few families to show that it's
Yeah.
possible to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this is also like a source of inspiration, even if like a lot of us might not be able to relate to the circumstance. I'm sure people do, and I'm sure also people could be inspired by your ability to kind of take a leap of faith and talk to them about things openly. That's amazing. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, what do you feel like your duty is?
Like to the world?
However you would answer that question.
Well, I guess I'll answer it in the context of music. I think my duty would be to help, I guess, like, I'm sure other creators are doing this too, but I think one of my goals is that I want to show the world that South Asians can also be, in the media, in, like actors, singers, dancers. We're not constantly the butt of the joke. I know we were like just talking about this previously, but it was actually the answer I was going to give you. I want to be, one of those people that like shows that we don't have to just be the joke. We don't have to be like, the comic relief or the scientist. We can be creative. We can be singers, dancers, actors, and not side characters, like the main characters. So yeah, I think that's what I want to do.
Show other people that representation can be actual representation of
Yeah.
the public.
Yeah, exactly.
So like so what is representation to you?
Well, I think representation comes in a lot of different forms, and I also think it's different for everybody because you relate to different things, but at the end of the day, I just want positive representation of South Asians. I feel like even now we are getting some representation, but I feel like it's not up to par of what I want. I think there's, we can have more South Asians in the music industry. We can have more South Asians as actors, and not like side characters, but like the main actors, like there's so many talented people out there. So I think basically just more positive representation.
Yes. More of us have more to offer.
Yeah, exactly.
And so music is obviously like such a massive part of Indian culture. So when I asked you the question, like, what is your duty? I had a feeling that you would answer music, but taking a step back, like, what is your duty to your culture? Why do we feel the need to continue it? Like, what's the point?
Well, I grew up with this culture, so I love it a lot. And I think at the end of the day, I just really want to share it with the rest of the world. I don't know if this is maybe because I'm South Asian, but I feel like when it comes to like our culture in the West particularly, I feel like we tend to get overlooked a lot. Like take for example, like Asian Heritage Month, we don't even get considered like Asian. Even though we're in Asia, it's always about like East Asians. And so I feel like I wanna, increase South Asian presence here in the West as well. Be that, through my music and like the Hindi language, or with the clothes I wear out, or the food that I eat. I want to celebrate my culture, and I want to share it, and I hope that everybody else would also want to, participate.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we're good. Is there anything that you wanted to mention?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask one last question.
Yeah.
What would you like to say with your platform and with your music?
Do you mean like
What's the
with my
message?
lyrics?
When someone goes on your page,
Yeah.
what vibe would they like? Well, what vibe, if you could control it,
Yeah.
would you want to give off?
I think the vibe that I have for myself is just not taking things too seriously, being, like very like chill, go with the flow. And so the music that I make, I think kind of naturally just translates into that. So I feel like if someone were to see me or see my music, I hope they would get the vibe of like, just very laid back. Life's not that serious, like just take it as it comes. So I think that's hopefully the message that I'm giving off to people.
I love that. I love that. I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you so much.